Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and tonight I'm just doing a quick discussion of the film Lust for Love of a Chinese Courtesan. I had done a review on Eastern Kicks and a podcast session like this on Intimate Confessions of the Chinese Courtesan. Both movies are by Chor Yuen, um, and one of them was made in the early 70s, one of them was made in the mid 80s. And so I just saw Lust for Love of a Chinese Courtesan, and I just want to give some of my initial thoughts. I'll be doing a review in the coming days. I just wrote the first draft, but usually what I do is I write the draft and then I sit and think about it, and then I rewrite the draft, and then I finalize it a couple of days later. Give it a little bit of time to rest, and then I review it again, and then I put it out. And that'll also be on Eastern Kicks. I'm still sort of thinking through how I feel about the movie, but I want to give my initial reaction, um, and some of my initial thoughts. Before I do, you can check out Wandering Heroes of Overgate, my Wuxia TTRPG. It's available in PDF as a pay what you want to drive through, and it's available on in print from Studio Two, or you can just go to our website. You'll find the link to both. There's also a sandbox adventure, Sons of Lady 87, which I highly recommend, and my other games, Strange Tales of New England, which just came out, and that's kind of more of a modern horror RPG, and Strange Tales of Songling, which is very much inspired by Pu Songling's Strange Tales from a Chinese studio. All that stuff out of the way. Let's talk about this movie. I'm a little tired, so I do apologize. This might be a low energy film, but a low energy discussion, but that might be appropriate here. Um, so, Lust for Love of a Chinese Courtesan is actually kind of a remake of Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan, and I had heard all kinds of things about it. It is a little bit infamous in some ways, but I hadn't seen it, so I didn't really know anything beyond what I kind of imagined it to be. And in some ways, I was surprised. In some ways, it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. So, in terms of the things that didn't surprise me, I knew that this film leaned much more heavily into the sensuality and into the sex scenes, and kind of had the vibe of more of a Category 3 movie. This is before Category 3, but I think it maybe was retroactively put into that group. I don't know, but it feels kind of more like a Category 3, or just for like a Western analog. If you're not familiar with Category 3, this isn't exactly perfect, but it's a little bit like a Skinamax type situation. So there's just a lot more sex. The sex scenes, they linger on it a lot longer. In the first movie, it was more hinted at. It was done in a way that sort of advanced the story. And here, it is in service to the story in that it's a love story between all these two characters, um, but it's just a lot. The sequences are much longer, and they don't always feel like they need to be that long. Though I'm sure a lot of people in the audience don't mind that they're that long. So you know, people can decide for themselves if they choose to see it. Um, the movie also changes, so it's the same basic story. It this character Ainu in the first film is abducted, sold into sexual slavery at this brothel run by Lady Chun, and in the first movie it's Lily Ho and Betty Pei T. In this one, it's Candice Yu and Nancy Hu. So, and also the the first one has Yu Hua and some other people in it, but really the movie is about these two women. And in that one, what ends up happening is to sort of get her initiated into the brothel. She's gang raped by these four men, and that is like the foundation of the whole movie. It's a revenge, rape revenge plot from that point on. And what's interesting about the Ainu character in the first film is after she realizes there's no escape, there's no way that she can, uh, you know, escape through like say suicide or through literal escape from the place. She she just sort of accepts the situation and becomes she learns how to weaponize love so that she can secure the how can I put it? So she can uh, get close to Lady Chun and gain her trust, and then go on this campaign of getting revenge against all the men who abused her, and then finally getting revenge against Lady Chun herself. So that's the basic plot of the first one. And in the first one, Lady Chun is this really terrifying character, like a real sort of just like a proper wuxia villain. So in the second movie, it's the same basic plot, but it's really, I think, told more from the Lady Chun perspective. And there are some significant changes. So in the first movie, they're both martial experts. At the start of the first movie, Lady Chun knows how to use martial arts, and she's probably the most deadly character in the film. Ainu learns over the course of the movie and also becomes, really deadly, um, to the point that she rivals Lady Chun. And in this movie, they don't have any martial arts. Neither of them are especially talented in that respect. They seem to just be normal women, and so they have to rely on the men around them and their own intellect and cunning and resourcefulness to achieve power. So it's interesting in that respect. I think the first movie, I'd rather watch a movie about characters who are good at martial arts than a movie like this. But it does do something interesting where it really focuses the film more on the romance between the two characters and gets into kind of this deep dive into their history and gives them more complex characterization. So it's doing something very different in that respect. Also, in this version, Lady Chun is a lot more sympathetic. Like, you get a good sense of her history. Her love for Ainu is much more pure, I think, in this version. It's ultimately her undoing in this version. It's her undoing in the first one, but in this one, it's different. Especially when you get to the end. And so, though those two changes really alter the story. Another big change is Lady Chun in this one. In the first one, she doesn't really have any kind of affection for men. In fact, her right hand muscle is sort of in this unrequited love situation where he's serving her because he loves her, but she is not reciprocating. In this version, she's reciprocating with a character who fulfills that same role. I don't think it was the same actual character, but there's a character who kind of grew up with her and protected her from youth, and they have a physical relationship, and so it really becomes more of a love triangle. And when you add in the constable character, it becomes kind of a quadrangle, though the constable really isn't that significant in this movie. So I would still kind of characterize it more as a love triangle. um, you know I don't quite know how I feel about this movie. I feel like my initial reaction was, it felt, it had like a very sort of tired late era Shaw Brothers feel. I didn't think that it was particularly inspired, but I thought it did some very interesting things. So I thought it was worth watching, and I enjoyed seeing how it was different from the first movie. I also uh, liked, even though I complained about it a moment ago, the fact that Lady Chun and Ainu don't have martial arts abilities in this one. It made for a very different viewing experience, and so I think that also meant that, coming in with familiarity with the first movie, uh, you know, there was still a lot. It wasn't like it was just a rehash of all of the plot beats. And when it did rehash the plot beats, it kind of played with the fact that you might have knowledge of what happens, and so that was also pretty compelling. I don't think that it's. I mean, so the first movie is just this perfect film. I think it's Chor Yuen's masterpiece. This movie is an interesting film, but it's really got some issues, and I think part of it has nothing to do with Chor Yuen. It has to do with the time it was made, the state of Shaw Brothers at the time, and I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, but I think that it was an interesting sort of exercise in terms of Chor Yuen making these changes and then seeing how that affects the story. I found that to be the most intriguing element of it. Um, but the final result is uneven, and it also just suffers from. If this was just lust and love, or lust for love of a Chinese courtesan, and there was no intimate confessions of a Chinese courtesan, I'm not sure how I would react to the movie. I might just kind of file it under an entertaining, late wuxia film from Shaw Brothers. This has a lot less wuxia than Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan, which I think also affects its viewability. But I think I certainly liked it more than say oh god, I can't remember the name of the movie, but more than like uh, I always get the title wrong, but either Journey of the Doomed or Voyage of the Doomed. And there's another movie from that same era, based on semi-gods and demigods and semi-devils, and I just can't recall the title right now. I think it was Battle Wizard. I could be wrong. I think it was Battle Wizard that I also wasn't too keen on. I would rate this higher than those two, but below like Buddha's Palm and Holy Flame of the Martial World and some of the other films that came out in the same era, and certainly below Hero Shed No Tears, the other, the Chor Yuen Hero Shed No Tears. Speaking of which, this kind of opens in a similar way to that movie. That film had one of the things that really grabbed me when I first saw Hero Shed No Tears was the opening musical sequence, which almost plays like a music video, and it kind of shows you flashes of stuff that's gonna come, and or that's up ahead in the movie, and you can tell from the lyrics. If I recall, I think the lyrics are uh, given subtitles at the bottom so you understand what they say, or there's enough familiar phrases that you just have an idea because you've heard them a lot in wuxia movies. But I'm pretty sure there was subtitles at the bottom, and it kind of foreshadows what's to come, and it gets you in the mood. And I thought that was really great. This does something similar where I don't think there were subtitles. I could be wrong. Maybe there were. I'll have to watch it again and see. But the music was good. Like, I did like the music, but it was a little bit of a different vibe than the Hero Shed No Tears music, and I felt that this could have used a little bit more. There was something like very minor key about the Hero Shed No Tears song, and something also that kind of got your blood flowing, like just got you interested. And this was just a little bit off. It wasn't bad, but it just didn't quite do the same work that theme song did. And the the opening was, it was interesting in that they weren't just taking scenes. I'm pretty sure they weren't, because I remember they looked very like the sets in the opening looked much more minimalist, and everything looked much more staged. There might have been some things that I didn't realize they came later in the movie after I saw them, but I'm pretty sure that these were kind of shot for the opening sequence, and that was interesting. And it was very surreal, and I was kind of intrigued because I thought, oh, I'm in store for a very surreal movie. And in some ways it was surreal because it has that 80s fog lens look to it, which always makes things look a little dreamy. But it's so focused on the relationship between Ainu and Lady Chun and their just overall domestic situation, that in a way it felt almost more like a cable movie or something. It didn't feel as expansive as a cinematic experience, I thought. And a lot of movies from that era just kind of have that feel because they're kind of more, we're hanging out in one place and experiencing the characters. Like something like, say, which I think is a great movie, but something like My Young Auntie, which is a really good movie and doesn't feel like a cable movie, but has kind of almost a hangout movie vibe. And this one, it isn't quite a hangout movie, but you're spending so much time in their inner chamber watching them have quarrels that it's almost like you know the characters too much, and it doesn't have the flow of the first movie. I'm not quite sure I'm expressing this well, but there was a definite difference in that respect, and somebody might be able to put it into better language than I can. But yeah, so I I think the other thing is it's just living in the shadow, like I was saying before, of Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan, and also in the shadow of those performances. Like, I really liked Candice Yu in this one. I think Candice Yu is a really good actress. I always like her in these kinds of movies. She's an actress. If she, like there's certain actors and actresses when you're watching these old Shaw Brothers movies or some Hong Kong movies, when they show up, you just kind of have a positive reaction. She's somebody like that. And I thought Nancy Hugh was good too, but the problem is, um, the Lily Ho character in Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan is so it's just so definitive, and also it's filmed in a way that really elevates her. This is filmed in a so Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan has that older style of almost like Sergio Leone type close-ups where the actors just look enormous on the screen at times, and it created this effect where they're literally towering over the remake, because the remake is shot more in that style of, say, I want to say like Killer Clans era. I might be a little bit off here, but just Chor Yuen starts kind of a lot of his movies. They're just not that same style of filmmaking that he was doing with stuff like Duel for Gold and an Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan. It's a little bit more panned out, and both are great. But because Intimate Confessions had so much of that, I don't know what to call it, but just the shots where um, the actors just they look enormous, not like they're overweight enormous or huge, but they're enormous on screen. They're kind of like these you know just figures that tower over you, and so like I said, it towers over the other movie. Um, and I think that the Betty Patek performance too is just so villainous and so evil and wicked. Um, what's interesting about this one though is again I think Candace Yu is probably the strongest part of the movie. I really liked her performance. Again, she's it's hard to compare them because Intimate Confessions is just such a great film. But she really injects like a lot of uh, warm, seductive uh, elements to the Lady Chun character. The other Lady Chun is very seductive, but she's more ferocious and she's colder and crueler and scary. This Lady Chun is not scary in that way. This Lady Chun is a powerful character, but she's also just a regular woman, and she is more vulnerable. And so I think that there was something interesting there in this movie. That was one of the most fascinating aspects of it. And it also felt like I said before, it felt like this is kind of the story told from Lady Chun's perspective. And I think if you watch the two movies in that way, where the and again, people might disagree with that because it does open with Ainu, but I felt like we were really getting Lady Chun's point of view in this movie for the most part. It's not like it's it's not like a the perspective is not consistent in that way, but I just feel like it is really more. That's where we're kind of getting our narration from, I think. And in the first movie, that's more Ainu's movie, and so I think that's also that's just that was something that intrigued me when I was watching it. Um, and so again, this isn't the greatest movie in the world. I'm not gonna, I love Choi Yuen, but this is, he's got much better movies. So I wouldn't recommend people start with this film. It's certainly a film to go to if you've seen Intimate Confessions and you enjoyed it, or if you've seen a lot of Choi Yuen movies and you want to see, his last few films, before Shaw Brothers closed their film production. But if you are going to if you are going to watch a Choi Yuen movie, Duel for Gold, Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan, Magic Blade, Killer Clans, Web of Death, Hero Shed No Tears. There's a lot of others that I'm just not thinking of at the moment. Um, this one, I would say, if you're a fan of Intimate Confessions, certainly watch it. If you're somebody who like I said, wants to see his his all Choi Yuen completist, watch it. If you're a Shaw Brothers fan and you want to see what they were doing in the late '80s, you just really want to see all of the Shaw Brothers wuxia, then see it. If you really like lesbian movies, then certainly this will have something for you. Um, I think that it's an interesting film. It's just not a film that you I would say this should be like your first Shaw Brothers experience, or your first Chor Yuen experience, or your first wuxia experience. And it's also not that much of a wuxia movie. It's much more grounded in kind of like erotic literature type stuff. Um, so yeah, I mean, and I do want to mention it's part of a box set from Imprint Asia. I was actually reviewing the two movies together as part of the. I have a bunch of copies of Intimate Confessions, but I never seen this one, and so I was happy to get this box set. And I do highly recommend the box set because number one, it comes with a really good, restored version of Intimate Confessions. Um, and the Intimate Confessions Blu-ray has a ton of extras. It's got the audio commentary, it's got the featurette, which I think was on another version that I had on Blu-ray or DVD called Intimate Confessions of Three Shaw Girls. And that's really good. And that actually sheds a lot of light on the Lust for Love movie. So I suggest, watching it for that. The featurettes are also really great. I quite liked the featurettes. And I loved the commentary from Sam Deegan. And that's for the Lust for Love of a Chinese Courtesan. That doesn't really have many extras. It's just got the DVD trailer and it's got the audio commentary by Sam Deegan. But her commentary is always really, really good. And so I was, as soon as I started the commentary, I didn't know that it was her right away because I forgot to look at the box. But she's got a distinct way of delivering the commentary. So I knew it was her right away. And I was glad about that because she's somebody that's good at giving you like really deep information on the actors involved, on the context, while also providing her own original thoughts and connecting it to what's going on the screen. So it's not just an off the cuff thing that feels totally ad libbed where they're just reacting, but it's also not just like her reading a video essay. So it's a really good middle ground of I'm getting a lot of and I don't know how much of it is prepared in advance or not. Maybe it is all off the cuff, and she just is has very high like memory retention or something. But I there's a few audio commentary people from a lot of these movies that I really like. James Mudge is another one. Full disclosure, he also writes at Eastern Kicks, but I don't really have any, strong connection to him. But I really like his audio commentary too. But yeah, so I mean, it's worth it for that. And also the commentary on the Intimate Confessions is also really good. You will get a lot of information about both movies. I When I was first getting into this stuff, that was one of my favorite things after watching the movie was to listen to the audio commentary, because that was a new thing kind of when DVDs were first coming out, and so like when I what was it the like what I used to do is I used to watch the movie a couple of times and then I would sit down and just kind of watch the audio commentary, and I kind of stopped doing that after a while because it's time consuming. But then when I started doing reviews again, I started paying more attention to the audio commentary again, and it is one of the more enjoyable experiences. One of my favorite audio commentaries is, and I don't know which one this is on because there's so many versions of Come Drink With Me, but the one with Cheng Pei Pei, she's there, and I can't remember who's there with her, but she gives a really, she just is, number one, she's always fun on things like that, but she gives a lot of very useful information about the film. Another movie, not wuxia, that I love the audio commentary for was oh god, why is the Starship Troopers? And the reason why I like that one is if I remember, and I could be wrong, but it's the director and the screenwriter, and they both clearly have different ideas about what the movie is, and so it actually explains a lot about the movie. And another one that also stood out just because it's so wild was the Resident Evil audio commentary in the first DVD they put out for that, where I think Michelle Rodriguez and Mila Jovovich are drunk. They're not drunk; they're just really excited to be in the recording booth. But it's I don't know which it was, but that was another exciting one. I think the kinds of audio commentaries I like, and I know I'm going off on a tangent here, are when you have like really skilled people, like Sam Deegan, who can, put together a very good audio commentary track that gives you information but is engaging with what you're seeing, or when they get like the director or the actors involved. The director is really that's the best of all possible worlds usually, unless the director doesn't care. There's I remember I had the Bram Stoker Dracula on DVD, and there's commentary with God, how my Francis Ford Coppola. I don't know how my brain is just not working anymore. He only made The Godfather, but it was interesting because he was so embittered in that. At least that's my memory. Maybe I'm, sometimes you see these things and you assign some kind of character to them, and then you go back and watch them, and it's wrong. But I remember it sounded like he almost felt like he wished he hadn't made the movie, which I found amusing because I love Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's one of my favorite films. You know, I, I mean, I understand why he might have some bitterness towards it. But I mean, I think it's a gorgeous movie that uses all of these really great old fashioned filming techniques and just looks and feels like amazing. It really sort of sucks you into this world that they create. And he was just talking about how all he wanted to do is make movies and then throw them in a drawer so nobody can see them. Um, I don't know which DVD release it was, but if you can find it, it's certainly worth checking out. Um, and yeah, so again, just to wrap this up, Lust for Love of a Chinese Courtesan. Certainly don't watch it with your mom. Dude, this is not a movie that you'll want to be embarrassed watching. It's very, it is very graphic in the sex scenes. It's not like graphic maybe by today's standards. I don't know, but I mean, these are long sex scenes, and they're not shying away from what's going on, and they're certainly trying to titillate the audience with them. Whereas in the first movie, it's really not that vibe. It's there, but it's flashes of things. And the rape sequence in the first movie is shot in a very unusual way. It's really trying to get an emotional reaction out of the audience and give them something that the film can go back to later on. And so it's not like it's not, it doesn't feel as exploitative as this one. This one really kind of is more of like an exploitation film style when it shoots the rape scene. And then the rape scene isn't even that important to the second movie. So they're just very different things. So yeah, so I would definitely say this isn't going to be for everybody, but certainly check it out if you like Chor Yuen, you like Intimate Confessions. And I do think the Blu-ray set is worth picking up. And I think if you watch them in sequence, it's definitely worth it. I would highly recommend if you get this Blu-ray and you watch Intimate Confessions, definitely watch the other one because it'll shed some light onto the story for you. It's a good secondary experience to the first film. So yeah, so I will let you go, and until next time, I will talk to you later.